Testing, testing. One, one, two. That's better? Yeah. All right, how's everybody? Yeah. All right. It's an honor to be back in London again. This is my 4th visit. I'm sure it's not my last. Always good to come and build with the brothers and sisters across the water. Last time I visited was November of 2012, and a lot has happened since then. For African people internationally, for us in the States, for you guys here, everywhere. And before I go too far, I want to make sure I invite you guys back out tomorrow for a double lecture that we're going to do over at the Venture Center. And that's going to start at 5 o'clock. I'm going to do 2. One presentation is going to be on the rise, fall, and redemption of the FBI's COINTELPRO. For those of you who have been paying attention to political developments across the water, and you're aware that President Obama made history by putting the first black woman's name on top of the most wanted terrorist list. And our Queen Mother, Sada Shakur, who's been minding her business in Cuba for the past 40 years, is now considered the most dangerous terrorist to American interests. She doesn't have any bombs. She doesn't have any weapons of mass destruction. All she did was seek out her freedom because she was falsely incriminated for killing an officer, which was proven forensically to never have happened. She was exonerated, but yet still, President Obama and the government are looking for our sister, and they raised the amount of money, the bounty on her head, from $1 million to $2 million. Anyone who will bring her back dead or alive, that's how much they'll be paid for an elderly sister. So I'm going to talk about COINTELPRO. Many of us don't know the history of COINTELPRO, which was actually started to help bring down His Excellency the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. In fact, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the founding father, if you would, of COINTELPRO, actually got his career start in destroying Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. So we're going to talk about how the FBI existed during Hoover's day, but even after Hoover's death in 1972, 1973, the COINTELPRO was never dismantled. It only went underground. And we found the COINTELPRO involved in the death of Tupac Shakur, involved in the death of the Notorious B.I.G., implicated in the death of Michael Jackson, Sam Cooke, okay, Dr. King, Malcolm X, and the list goes on and on. And so tomorrow, I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation on the political assassinations that has been taking place in America, and even over here. Jimi Hendrix, for example. That was a joint assassination between the COINTELPRO and the Secret Service over here. And you guys have had several as well. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And then my main presentation, The Illusion of Inclusion, the myth of black progress since the end of slavery and since the election of President Obama. A lot of us think that African people are doing better now than ever before as the result of President Obama's election. But the statistics show something totally different than what we believe. And that is that African folks are actually doing worse. AFRICOM in Africa, the recolonization of the continent, and Obama initiative has really helped push back Africa to the pre-colonial days. There's total ignorance of, or total neglect of issues affecting black people in America and across the world for that matter. President Obama is the first president we've ever had in America who has not dealt with black civil rights. He has totally ignored black civil rights and is totally focused on other people. We're going to talk about that in the context of our most recent legal decision. You guys heard about it. Trayvon Martin case. Zimmerman walking free. I was actually in South Florida when that verdict came out. My paternal grandmother lived in Sanford, Florida. She lived in the city at the time of Trayvon's assassination. So we're going to talk about that and how an adult male who's not even a cop can walk free after getting out of his car, after being told not to leave his car. He got out of the car, pursued Trayvon, killed him, and was able to walk. So we know back in 1857, I think it was, Dred Scott case, I'm forgetting the year, but Chief Justice Roger Taney said that the black man has no rights that a white man are bound to respect. And I think the Trayvon Martin case is very, very endemic of that. But it's also endemic of some other things too, which I'm going to touch on tomorrow night as well. So you want to come on out to that program, and that's going to be at 103A Warnington Road. And I'm going to do the lectures back to back from 5 until 10. And then from 10 until 1, there's going to be live entertainment. There's going to be a band, meet, greet, chat, and chew. And you hang out with Dr. Umar. So that's tomorrow, 5 to 10, with the afterflow and entertainment from 10 to 1. And that's 103A Warnington Road, W10 5YB. That's one thing you guys do different here. Y'all go by the W10 5YB. That's how y'all find out what stuff is, right? In America, it's a little different, so I'm trying to learn that. And then Sunday, I was contacted by the elder Emmanuel, who owns the Centerprise bookstore. And by the way, did he find another location yet? Centerprise hasn't, not yet?
Birmingham.
Well, anyway, he wanted to do an event with Dr. Umar. So what we're going to do on Sunday, day after tomorrow, we're going to do a meeting of the minds for London, where I'm going to facilitate discussion with you all on topics that are of interest here. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about economics. We're going to talk about black organizations in London and whether you guys are working together, whether you're fighting amongst each other. Okay, we're going to talk about male-female issues. We're going to talk about the children. That's going to be a discussion. That's going to be a think tank. That's going to be a meeting of the minds. And that's going to be Sunday from 5 to 9. And the address is the Tottenham Green Leisure Center. The Tottenham Green Leisure Center, 1 Phillip Lane, N15 4JA. So again, Sunday 5 to 9, Tottenham Green Leisure Center, 1 Phillip Lane, N154JA. So let's get into tonight's presentation. Tonight I want to focus on the children. That's what I do. I see a lot of new faces out there. So to let you know exactly what I am, most of the time when I travel I have on a 3-piece suit. But I'm so tired of European clothing that, well, this is still European clothing, so that doesn't work. I'm so tired of the 3-piece suit that when I travel, I try to look gangsta. Okay? So you got to forgive me. Normally when I come, I wear the suits, but since that's what I wear all the time, I just like to be comfortable sometimes, and I don't think y'all mind it. I'm a certified school psychologist. School psychologists, what do? We evaluate children and we decide who goes into special education. Y'all have special education over here in London just like we have it in the States. Just like they have it in the Caribbean, just like they have it in Canada. Well, I want to talk about special education. And I want to give you all as parents and people who work with our young folks some information that you can use to help keep them out of special education when they don't need it. We also need to talk about ADHD and the medications that they're giving our children, and how so many of you are given permission for the mental health complex of London to turn your child into a baby crack addict. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the drugs. We're going to talk about the psychological evaluation process. That's what I want to do today. So when you leave here, I want to make sure you got some weapons you can use to help fight to protect your child from miseducation or from psychiatric medication. Miseducation or psychiatric medication. Now, I promised you that when I came back to London, it would not be without my new book. So when we're done here tonight, you will have an opportunity to purchase a copy of my new book. I'm proud of it. It's my first one, about time. Okay, I'll be 39 on August the 21st. Any Leos in here? Lions? All right, it's almost time to roar in a few more days. So anyway, the title of my book is Psychoacademic Holocaust, the Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys. But even if you're not raising a son, you might be raising a daughter. You still need to read the book, because the war against the boys is the same war that's against the girls. It's just that it's more aggressive with the male children. Does everybody understand? So don't say, well, I don't have any sons, I don't need to read that. Oh, yes, you do. Because they do the same thing to our daughters. It's just that with the boys, it's more aggressive. So in my book, you learn about the different diagnoses. In my book, you learn about the major drugs that they give our children, why they give them to our children, but more importantly, the side effects of the drugs and how much money they make prescribing these drugs. It's in my book. And for my mothers, my second to the last chapter, for the fathers too, but especially for my mommies. I'm going to pick on you for a second. My second to the last chapter is on dealing with disruptive behavior without medication. You can change your child's behavior and you don't need chemicals to do it. I don't know why you bought into this notion that your son needs medication in order to get an education. Think about that for a minute. You don't need medication to work. You don't need medication to fly. You don't need medication to drive. But you're being told that your children need medication in order to learn. I'm going to show you how to change disruptive behavior with no drugs. And you can change it in 1 month. You can eliminate any misbehavior your son or daughter has been engaging in 1 month, and you do not need to physically spank them. You don't have to hit them, and you don't need drugs. Second to the last chapter teaches you how to deal with that. Fathers, some of y'all can be a little heavy-handed with the young men. I want you to read that chapter too. Because any parent who's always smacking their child when they mess up, any parent who's always spanking them when they mess up, that's not discipline, that's child abuse. Am I going to say you should never spank a child? I would never say that, because it can be useful at times. But should it be your primary strategy for dealing with misbehavior? Never. If you're spanking a child, if you're cursing, if you're yelling, that's child abuse. And the only thing you're doing is reducing their level of self-esteem. That's the only thing you're doing. So the second to the last chapter teaches you how to change behavior without drugs. The last chapter answers questions that I get about special education. You say, what should I do if the school wants me to get my child evaluated? What should I do if they tell me my son can't come back to school unless he has medication? Can they make me do it? Not really. They can't make you get your child evaluated. They can't make you put your child on drugs. But they can make you keep them on drugs. Did everybody hear that? Once you start, they can keep it going. Just like special ed. They can't force you to put the child in special education. But once you accept it, now they can force you to keep them in. You are in control in the beginning. But once you consent, you now turn the control over to the system. Now some of you are going to say, don't some children need special education? We have blind children. We have African children who are deaf. We have African children who have traumatic brain injury. We have African children with orthopedic impairment, autism, speech and language impairments. Don't we have children who need special ed? Yes. We have children who are blind. I diagnose them. We have children who are autistic. I evaluate them. We have children who have speech and language impairments. We have children who have orthopedic impairments. They need special education. But just because you need it doesn't mean you're going to get it the way you need it. So we have to watch how special ed is what? Introduced into the lives of our children. Because special education is like medication. Too much of it can hurt you. And so even if your child needs it, you want to make sure they only getting the amount that they need, because too much special education equals a miseducation.